And now, Escaping the Drift, the show designed to get you from where you are to where you want to be. I'm John Gafford, and I have a knack for getting extraordinary achievers to drop their secrets to help you on a path to greatness. So stop drifting along, escape the drift, and it's time to start right now. Literally back again. I'll get to that in just a second for another episode of Escaping the Drift, the show that gets you from where you are to where you want to be, man. And you know where I want to be? I'll tell you where I want to be. I don't want to be feeling like I'm having deja vu, but I'm having deja vu. And I'm going to preface this before I introduce today's guest, which is sometimes, man, you don't always get dealt a good hand. And today, for the first time in 200 episodes, maybe that many, one of the channels was not on when we recorded this show. So I recorded a banger of a podcast, a banger for you people. And guess what? Didn't have the right juice. So this cat that was nice enough to fly in to do the show, I hit him up and I'm like, bro, I am so sorry. I'm so embarrassed. This never has happened. Can you do me a solid and come back? And he has come back for round two. And so, look, there's a lot of stuff we know in the first one. It's going to be just as good. I trust you. And here's the thing, even if it's not, I hope you're wondering, like, where's the lost tapes, the lost episode that I didn't get? And I leave you hungry for a little bit more. But on to today's guest. If you drank yourself blackout drunk between the time of about 2007 and 2010, today might be of interest to you. If you thought about drinking yourself blackout drunk, if you were a college guy, maybe you're a fraternity guy, maybe it's Friday night, you had a tough time on your final. You're like, dude, I'm just trying to kill the end of the week and get a little buzz before I head down to the old frat house, and you look in your bank account, your ATM card back when we had those things, and you stick it in the ATM and you put your number in and it says current balance, $2.95. Because you spent all the money mom and dad sent you, but you still want to catch a buzz. So what do? You go down to the store, you open that glass door, you look for that elixir, and it's 24-ounce can. And you grab yourself a Four Loko. Well, if that is something that you did in your life, I got a treat for you. Because the guy that made all of that possible, the founder of the brand Four Loko, and more to the point, better stuff now, but the founder of that wonderful brand in studio today. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back, Mr. Chris Hunter. Chris.
Second time's going to be better, buddy.
So good to see you, man.
You as well.
I feel like it's been 4 hours.
Yeah.
I feel like it's been 4 hours since I saw you the last time, but that's okay because we're going to get all the good stuff out. So you are a guy that scrapped up a brand from nothing, man. You started from zero and you just got this thing going. So the first thing is, how did you, what was the first hustle as a kid? That's a question I didn't ask you earlier. What was the first hustle?
Yeah, as a kid, let's see.
What was the first way you made money?
Yeah, I think the first way I made money was around first or second grade. I was coloring pictures in a coloring book like first or second graders do. And I think my family told me, those are really good. I had the shading right. I don't know, whatever. So I decided to rip them out and go sell them in the neighborhood. And I went door to door and sold my own coloring book pictures.
Oh my God. What a gangster move for a little kid. Cause who's going to be like, I'm sorry, your coloring sucks. I'm not going to buy it. They're like, oh, you're trying to sell your art. How much is it?
Exactly.
And you're like $37.
Yeah,
what were you flipping
I think I started at a quarter, and by the end I was up to a couple of bucks because no one was saying no.
You're first grade. You're just pressing the market till you find out where the cap is.
That's right. You got to find out how high you can go.
You got to find out. So you went to college at Ohio State University, which we didn't talk about that. I don't know how I feel about that.
Don't tell me you're a Michigan guy.
No.
All right.
No. I could care less about Michigan. I could care less. I'm the most jaded college football fan base after last year that there is. Would you care to guess what college football fan base that is?
Who did Michigan beat?
No. Who didn't get the chance to play Michigan? Who didn't even get a chance to suit up? Who was screwed by Kurt Herbstreit and ESPN and the rest of those money-grubbing bastards to give Saban a chance to try to go out on top even though he didn't deserve it?
Remind me.
Florida State University.
Oh. You guys had your run.
We're in the middle of our run. Mid-run. It's ebb and flow, and right now we're is ebbing or flowing better, do you think?
I don't know, but you're in the better one.
I think, we're flowing. Right we're flowing. Enough about
Listen,
that.
If today's a good example, like the second time is the best.
I agree.
Right? So next year.
Exactly. So you went to Ohio State.
Yep.
And there you had, you started really, you learned a great hustle that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
And if you are somebody that, like I said earlier, if somebody was, I'm no longer going to say, like I said earlier, because I will say that 800 times today. I'm no longer going to say that. If you're somebody listening to this and you are in the 18-year-old to maybe 25-year-old and you got some swag to you and you're a good looking human, you might want to listen to this story. This is a great way to make money if you're a college kid.
It was the best way to make money.
Great way. Explain that story. What was it?
So basically I go to Ohio State, right? And I guess if I look back, I started throwing parties when I was in high school. So at the end of the year, I would throw this party at my house. We lived on a property that had like a half an acre beside it. And when I think all the way back, my stepdad's birthday, he probably turned like 40. My mom threw a birthday party for him and they threw a rager. Okay. My uncle DJ, they brought in a mobile hot tub. It was just, and my family was partiers, right?
And you're taking notes.
And I'm taking notes. The next year, I throw that same party as a freshman and I have a lot of cousins and we bring in people from everywhere.
What did your parents say?
They're good for you. You're a smart kid. Make some money. My uncles are working the door, charging the money. Other ones are making sure people aren't drinking in the cars. So I guess if I look back.
This is Chicago?
This is in Ohio. Youngstown, Ohio. And so I guess I learned my promoting career then, but I didn't think of that. I go to Ohio State. I get this job working for the spring break company called STS. I go to Cancun and live there during spring break. And one of my jobs is standing at the nightclub door and watching people walk in with an STS bracelet and clicking it. I count the number of people. And I'm wondering why I'm doing this job. And I find out that they're getting money for every person that comes through the door. Light bulb clicks. I'm in a fraternity. I know a bunch of people at school. I get back from spring break and I randomly called this nightclub that was kind of struggling.
Borderline.
I said, I want to throw a party there on Thursday in 3 weeks. And the guy said, how many people are you going to bring? I said, I don't know. I'll bring 1,000 people. And he said, paused for a minute. I just threw out a damn number, right? Paused for a minute. And he said, if you bring 1,000 people, I'll give you half the door. And the door cover at that time was $10. So I was going to make $5,000 in one night. I came up a little bit short. I got 900 people in the door.
Dude,
I made $4,500 and that started my promotions career.
And we were talking, I mean, look, if you don't know what to do, if you can talk to people and bullshit to people and try to say this is where the spot is, in Vegas, it's second nature. Every nightclub has these guys that patrol. But if you're a college kid somewhere, understand something. When you go to college, like these college bars, like you get one night, like you get like, we all go there on Thursday. We go here on Wednesday. We go there on Tuesday. Dude, if you can somehow go to a bar that's got nothing else going on and tell them, I'm going to bring you a bunch of folks and you don't have to do anything. And all you got to do is cut me in. You essentially become a partner of that business.
Right.
And you have no overhead, no taxes, no payroll, no insurance, no anything, just the cost of some flyers.
Yep.
Is all it is. So you can literally pretty much own part of a business from doing that. And I thought when we talked about that, through the years from my college bar days to even in Atlanta, at the nightclub we had there, Jermaine Dupree would throw a party every Sunday night. It was promoted by two guys that were there. And we would hand them like $25, $35, $50, $60,000 a night.
Yeah.
Just for coming in.
It's crazy the money you can make. And I say everybody had their ramen noodle days, right? Mm-hmm. Most likely. Mine were not in college. Everybody else's were in college. When I was in college, I was buying boats. I was like living the high life. Cause at one point I started promoting 3-4 nights a week, to your point. Mm-hmm. Pick a different club or take
your crowd somewhere else.
Take my crowd somewhere else. And what I found is that most people did not want to think about where to go. Just like, tell me where to go. Tell me what's going on tonight. And if it's fun, I'll be there next week too.
Dude, it's so funny how quickly word of mouth can catch for stuff like that. You know, when I was literally telling the story yesterday, I forgot about it, but my claim to fame and promotion was, and we talked about this person, a guy named Dave Road, who became good friends of mine, worked for Red Bull, and we'll tell his story in a minute, how it interacts with you. But there was an event in Atlanta called Music Midtown. It was a big, multi-day outdoor festival downtown with bands. And I went with Red Bull as their guest because I was their guy. And at the time I owned a bar that was a live music venue in Atlanta, and very proud of that bar. I loved it. Gracing that stage where the likes of John Mayer, the Zach Brown band played there.
This wasn't little locals. You were bringing national acts.
No, these were local guys.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, wow.
Dude, Zach used to play for $100 on my patio.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. Like literally John Hopkins is the bass player for the Zach Brown band. Wish him happy birthday today. I've known him forever, but a lot of those guys that came out of Atlanta played at this bar. But anyway, long story boring, we go to Music Midtown, and somehow maybe I had a couple drinks and I spread a rumor that Live, who was playing at the festival, was playing an after show at my bar. And maybe I don't know, 10 people I told this to. I don't know if what I'm doing after, because Live's going to play a secret show later.
Right.
Dude, we left Music Midtown to go to dinner, and we were in the Red Bull limo, and I said, Dave, I need to go by the bar and just check on it, see what's going on. It's Sunday. It's going to be dead. Dude, there was like 3,000 people in my place. I walk in, and the bar manager, who was supposed to be there taking inventory but is now working, just looks up to me and this panicked face and just says, "What did you do?" I was like, so I made a call to John Hopkins that I just talked about. I said, dude, can you get down here with a band in like an hour and play? He's like, yeah, no problem, brother. I got you. And nobody cared. And
as long as there was music.
And we crushed it.
That's amazing.
On that Sunday. So
that's amazing.
I was very, very proud of that. So here you are, back to you. You're promoting your business, or you're promoting bars and stuff.
Yeah.
And you learned a very interesting skill doing that. What was that? Or what did you see that you learned?
Well, I saw a lot of stuff that I learned. I mean, I met a lot of people. Networking is obviously huge, and I believe that from that day. But I started to see Red Bull be introduced, right? And so this was at the time, like right before I started promoting. Red Bull was kind of hitting the US, but it wasn't in the Midwest. It wasn't in Ohio yet. And we had actually gone down to this little like Asian market in town, and they had the original Red Bull, which was in like a bottle, and it was like a concentrated syrup. And we started buying that and bringing it back to the fraternity house and selling it for $5 a bottle, because this idea of an energy drink there was no energy drink, right? Red Bull hadn't come to Ohio yet.
Yeah.
And so as they expanded, they hired reps in the market, and they started handing out cases. They would always have product at our party. And of course, it was being consumed with alcohol. So it was the first exposure to this idea of caffeine and alcohol being mixed way back in college.
Great plan.
Yeah.
Great plan.
Yeah.
Great plan. So you graduate, and what do you do now?
So I moved to Chicago. No job, no clue what I'm going to do. But my now wife, girlfriend at the time, was moving there. I was originally going to move to LA, and I went to LA with a buddy who had won a reality show back at that time.
A reality show? Which one?
It was called Paradise Hotel. It was the most. So let me set this stage for you. So my buddy is dating my wife's friend. They live together.
Okay.
He leaves to go on the show and doesn't tell his girlfriend much about the show.
It's a dating show.
It's a dating show. The way you win it is by hooking up essentially the most.
Oh,
so I'm going to my girlfriend's house to watch this show with her and her girlfriend, and they're
and she has no idea.
No, and it's just a disaster. Needless to say, they broke up. But I was supposed to move to LA with him. I went to LA with him after the show. I hated LA, and I was like, I'm not going there. I landed back in Columbus. Called up my girl, who I was just getting back together with, my girlfriend, who's now my wife. And she's like, Chicago's amazing right now. Come check it out. So I go there, love it. I'm moving to Chicago. No clue what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Get there, run up debt, run through all the money I had made in college, run up a bunch of debt because I'm not really an employable person. And I've always kind of been an entrepreneur. And I'm in a new city not knowing what I'm going to do.
Dude, isn't that so funny? Because I mean, you don't want to call them weed dealers, but let's call them weed dealers. You have like the guys.
That too.
You have like no, but I'm saying you got like the professional guy. You got the guys in college that are like, I'm going to school for finance, but I'm a weed dealer too.
Right.
And then they graduate and they're like, I'm going to get a job at Deloitte and Touche, and then all of a sudden they're like broke because they're not dealing weed anymore.
Right.
And it's the same thing. You come out of the nightclub and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, what just happened?
Right. And like, I got to go work this long to make this much money.
Yeah, exactly.
So I run through all the money and And I'm like, not going to go get a regular job. But I wake up one day at my girlfriend's house and I must have been singing the blues and telling her the situation because there's a check there. She literally cut me a check to pay rent.
Ouch.
Yeah. So that was what I needed because I was like, now I got to
just say on the memo line, did it just say in exchange for your masculinity? Is that what it said?
Yeah, exactly. Handed it over. You better earn this shit back. It was tough.
Sell your soul, buddy.
So yeah. So, but it was a motivator, right? Now I'm going to make it happen. And so adding one layer to the story, I knew these guys who seemed to be rolling in cash. I didn't know what they did. I found out basically they were like storm chasers. They would do hail damage on roofs and it paid a lot of money.
It does. It's great money.
And I said, I'm in. There was no barrier to entry, right? Just show up. I'm a hustler. I can sell, color pictures door to door. I could sell this shit, right? And so I go and do it. The funny thing, the ironic thing is I'm afraid of heights. And so I find myself climbing on roofs, doing hail damage claims, starting to make money. I never lost an incentive. I needed to get them. I needed to eat. I needed to pay my girlfriend back. But I wasn't long for the industry. I knew that. And so I started trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I look back through all these business cards I had collected in college from all these people I had met. And I see this card from this guy that had started a vodka company. And I met him when he was in Columbus because he wanted to meet all the party bars owners. That's where he was going to sell his drink. It was a cherry vodka that mixed with Red Bull, oddly enough. And but his broker there called on all like high-end restaurants. And so they called me and they said, can you take him around? So I did. I paid attention. I learned. I understood how the alcohol industry worked. That was it. 2 years later, I find his card and I literally call and email him every day until he picks up and says, I'll hire you. And so that was how I got into the beverage business. It was the only real job I had.
See, and I love that story because look, if you are trying to pester somebody to mentor you into sales as any part of the business, you've got to understand, you've got to chase them with the same tenacity of which they would expect you to chase their clients.
Right.
Or they chase their clients. So many people, dude, hit me up and they're like, hey, I want to work with you. And I'm like, I don't really take on any experienced agents. And then crickets.
That's it.
I tell the story a lot of very similar. I had somebody that worked for me named Amber, and she came out of the nightlife industry and she came here and interviewed and said, hey, I want, receptionist came back and said, there's, a young lady up front wants to talk to you. Out, what's going on? She's like, hey, I want to work for you. I just got a license. I'm brand new. I'm like, I don't hire brand new agents. Not something I do.
Right. She's
like, okay, cool. Thanks. I'm like, here, you're probably looking at this, do this, blah, blah, blah. See you later. Next day she's here again. Did you forget something? She's like, no, I want to work for you. And she kept coming and it only took 3 days. And I was like, dude, all right, I'm in. I'm in. And she turned out to be just such a phenomenal human to work with because that tenacity, it's like that you can teach people a lot of stuff, man. I can hand you a script. I can hand you a plan. You can't teach tenacity.
Yeah. Your willingness to be able to do whatever you need to do, right?
Yeah. You got it or you don't.
You have to. I mean, I remember in high school, I took a job selling Cutco knives. Do you remember Cutco?
Yeah, of course, dude.
I had one customer. It was my grandma. I asked a lot of people to buy those knives. I realized that I did not like taking money for me at that time, these knives were so expensive. It was like car payments for people I knew. I couldn't go sell them. The point was you
didn't believe in what you're doing.
I didn't believe in what I was doing, but I could do it. I could go ask the person for the sale until I was detached from and didn't believe in what I was doing.
Yeah. When I transitioned from the bar and restaurant industry, when I made that transition, when the doctor told me I needed a life change was his diagnosis at 28 years old. Jesus, look at you, man. What's your diet? Maker's Mark and cigarettes. Yeah. You need a life change, buddy.
Time to move on.
So yeah, but I called my buddy in sales. He was the vice president of WorldCom at the time. And I said, man, give me a gig. He's like, I can't give you a job off the street, man. You need sales experience. And he's like, I'll give you 2 roads. Go sell cars, go sell Kirby vacuum cleaners. Either way you'll have a PhD in sales in 90 days.
Yep.
And I was like, what? And I was like, dude, zero chance I'm going to sell. Because dude, I'm the cool guy. I'm the club guy. I'm the bar guy. I'm not going to go sell Kirby vacuum cleaners. But I swallowed my ego to get the education and I went and sold cars. And that's where I learned how to sell. And he was right, man.
Yeah.
Because this was back before you could just go on the internet and rip down and see exactly how much the dealer would take a dealer cost.
Right.
Like there was still money to be made in cars. Yeah.
I sold cars as well. So I had this short stint at Ohio State. The first time I went, so essentially my college career started this way. I went to Miami of Ohio, which is like a very high end, they call it the Ivy League of the Midwest school. And I just felt like I didn't fit there. And what I realized in retrospect is I was homesick. I decided to transfer to Ohio State. I transferred to Ohio State. I'm there for 3 days. I go to the ATM. My bank account is emptied. My mom struggled with addiction and she had emptied out my bank account. And I was like, okay, shit, I got to go home. I go back to Youngstown and no one in my family really went to college. On my dad's side, no one even finished high school. On my mom's side, I had one cousin who went to college because he played football. He was a year older than me. And so I had an uncle who was a general contractor and he knew I was coming home and he's like, yeah, you're coming to work for me. And he made me pound nails in hard corners and do all the hard shit. I'm going to show you what life's going to be like, right? Yeah. Quickly realized that was not for me. And I was going to go back to college, but I had a quarter until I could go back. And my other uncle worked at a car dealership and he said, come work for me. Day one, throw me in the deep end, go sell a car. Sold a car, day one. Bullshitting. I have no clue what I was telling them. Yeah. I don't know what happened. But to your point, just personable and just talk to people, right?
Yeah, I think that, that's something, anybody in sales, I would highly recommend that job. Yeah, just for, even if it's just to getting it out. I knew I was a 90-dayer there from the day I started.
Yeah.
And literally from the day I started to the day I left, on the day 90 when I left, and I told my boss, I'm quitting, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
The owner of the dealership comes to me and he's like, hey, what's going on? And I was like,
can we keep you?
Hang on a second. So I'm like, I got to come up with some, and I already knew what was next, right? I knew what I was going to do. And I knew a company that my sister and I were going to start. And I knew this, but I didn't really want to talk about it. So I figured I'd just come up with some bullshit reason why I can't work here and why I got to move to Florida. So I was like, at the time you're young and just the nightclub business, whatever, even though I had money, you still have 5 roommates. It's just what you did back then.
Right.
And it was just a gang of dudes and just what you do when you're in your early 20s. And, I say to him, I lost all my roommates. They all moved out. So I can't afford the lease on our place. So I'm going to move back to Florida. And he goes, no, here's what we'll do. I'll be your roommate. He goes, I'll pay 5-6 of all your bills. You'll never see me. I'll never even come over. And I was like, he's like, I'll pay all of your bills. I'll pay all your bills. I'll never come over. And I was like, okay, no, I'm really moving to Florida to do something else. I can't do this. All right, whatever, blah, blah. I thought he was going to cry because I got really sharp at that job because it was good training. And it was, man. And it's a great place to learn that.
It's my first job, the one that I got selling vodka, I looked at it that exact same way.
Yeah.
I got to learn on somebody else's dime. And so I got to understand the alcohol industry, 3-tier system, distributors, retailers or bars, and the end customer. I got to manage multiple states. I got to build relationships. Similar story. When I had decided that I was leaving to start Fusion with my 2 partners, I went to him and told him I was leaving. And he's like, what if we offer you shares in the company? And I knew enough to ask. He said maybe 100,000 shares. I don't remember the number. And I knew enough to ask, well, how many shares are there? And there were millions, right?
Exactly.
And I was like,
we're going to dilute you down to 0.0006%.
But you get 100,000, right?
Class B, non-voting.
Yeah, exactly. Common. And I said, look, man, I really appreciate that because it was a nice gesture to the same story of the guy that tried to keep you there. But I was like, I have to try this on my own. And if I fail at it, someone will recognize that it took balls to go try it anyways.
See, so many people are not willing to do what you just did. And I love this because they look at when they get a job in a new industry or a new field and they, maybe it doesn't pay that great. Maybe it's not that awesome. I look at it as, if you go to college, you pay a shit ton of money. And no, I'm not anti-college. I believe college is a wonderful thing. So I'm not one of those guys that says waste of money. I think it's depending on if you get a degree in Western civilization or Latin, I think you're an idiot. Yeah. But if you get a degree in finance, there's nothing like go get a degree in finance. It's the language of business. Go get a degree in accounting. It's the language of business. But if you get a job that maybe doesn't pay a lot, but you're learning a skill set that we can carry on that you could eventually possibly replicate or even open your own business by learning it, that's getting paid to go to school.
Exactly. That's
not a job, right? A job is where you sit at a counter and ring people up and you're not learning a skill set that you can take anywhere else.
Yep. But I think if it becomes unbearable when you don't know that you're going to go do something else. So if you can look at it at that time,
then have the vision to the next step.
Yeah. And I don't think people have to know what's next. I think it unfolds, right? Like I would have never, maybe an early college said, I'm going to create a caffeinated alcoholic beverage or I'm going to create plant-based protein drinks. Right. But things just fell in line because I was paying attention and learning things and trying things, many of which I didn't like, to learn what I did like or what I was good at. And then this idea of like caffeine with Red Bull and things, and alcohol with selling vodka, it just then made intuitive sense. But you got to go do things to see what you like and what you don't and what you can create. You
got to figure it out. But I also believe too that, there's that one little gene that we all have in the back of our mind that says, you can't be a good employee. You're an entrepreneur. You're unemployable. This is terrible. Yeah. Every day you go to work is like grinding your spirit down into chalk. Is what it's like.
I agree.
I know that talk.
Yeah.
You're smarter than your boss.
Yeah.
I know that conversation. So when that gene took over out of the liquor selling business and you decided to go out on your own, talk us through that.
Yeah. So I basically was selling a lot of this vodka mixed in with Red Bull. It was a cherry flavored vodka. And so the idea for caffeine and alcohol was very deeply implanted, right? Like I drank it, I was selling a lot of it. It was clear that there was demand for this. And so I was out in California on a sales blitz and I saw this product called Sparks. And it was the original pre-mixed, alcoholic energy drink. And I asked the guy working the store, I said, does this stuff sell at all? And he said, yeah, mostly bums. And it was just this like baffling thing to me. I was like, I'm not a bum. I'm interested in it. They're missing the mark, right? So that's what started the idea. And then I found myself obsessing over it.
Do you think so? But it's kind of the same thing, but like PBR, I think like Pabst Blue Ribbon, like that's not a high-end beer, but it became the hipster beer of choice.
Sure.
Just need a little push in the right direction from the guy that knows what club to go to.
That's right. Exactly. How to position it.
Is that what you saw? You said, I just don't think this is positioned right.
I think I can make it cool. Yeah, that's exactly what I saw.
All right. So we saw we're going to make this cool. And what is that decision? You're sitting here, you have your job. You've seen this product. You think you can do it better.
Yeah.
What is are you with the girlfriend at this point?
Yeah.
Okay. You're with the girlfriend. Tell me about that conversation when you come home and tell this person that wrote you a rent check that you're going to throw away the job that you got to chase the bum, the
bum drink,
the homeless dumb Perignon.
Well, when you say it that way, it really
sound that good. Oh, yeah.
So what happened? My girlfriend at the time, we were going to a comedy show in Chicago, and it's a BYOB thing, right? So I pull up to the liquor store. She runs in. She comes back out with Smirnoff Ice, and I was like, "What the fuck? Like Smirnoff Ice?" She goes, well, I was thinking of getting Red Bull and vodka. I'm a little bit tired, but it's just two of us. I didn't want to buy a whole bottle of vodka, Red blah, blah, blah. And so I had been thinking about this idea anyways, kind of obsessing on it. She says this, and I'm like, I'm going to start a alcoholic energy drink. She's like, okay, whatever. Like kind of dismissive. And I'm like, that's the fucking ammo I needed. I'm starting it now. So I didn't
She pays attention to everything you say now.
Now she does, for sure. Now she does. So look, she always knew what she was getting into. I mean, with me, right? She always knew it was going to be this kind of ride. I don't know that she thought I would start the better take of the bum drink. Like, but
it's on the presentation. That's probably a bad pitch.
Yeah.
The slide deck would have been magical.
Yeah, right, exactly. But it wasn't a big deal or surprise to her. There was no big, shock.
So you get off, and this is where I find this interesting. So manufacturing a product from scratch when you have no idea how to do this, and this is not exactly the boom time of private labeling, easy to find on the internet, all this stuff. This is a little bit of a treasure hunt to how to get this done, I imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so I come up with this idea and I'm like, well, I'm going to do this. And then I start to think, all right, probably out of insecurity of my own ability, like, okay, who can I do this with? And so I call up my buddy from college, Jeff, and I told him the idea and he's like, yeah, I'm in. It wasn't very hard. He had a great paying job. We were both going to do it like part-time as we kept our jobs and figure this out. And to his credit, he started like asking around, like, how do you get these things made? He was selling industrial gas. A lot of it was used to freeze pizzas. And so that's how he learned where to start digging, right?
Because there's a manufacturing component.
There was some manufacturing component. And so then he started like learning about, okay, there's this thing called a flavor house. So that's where we started. And once you're established, they'll create anything for you for free because they want to sell you the ingredients. But when you're new, you go in and you pay at that time $10,000 up front, and they'll give you 3 versions of your product. And so that's what we did. So that's great. We figure out how to create it, right? And it was very non-scientific. It's like we look at the competitor, they're 6% alcohol, we're 6% alcohol. They say, well, how much caffeine do you want in it? I turn a Monster can around, this much caffeine.
This is what I want.
Right? That's how non-scientific it was, but we get the product. Great. Now, how do we make it? Do we have to buy a brewery? What do we do from here? And so we just start asking questions, and we ask the flavor house, who should we talk to get this made? And they enlighten us that there are these things called co-mans or co-manufacturers. And so we call one of them up, and basically we give them our formula. We show them the design. We buy the cans that we want them to put it in, and they'll essentially take all the ingredients, package it, and give us a finished product. Great. Now we know what to do, but that is expensive.
There's a huge risk there.
Right. And so what we then decided to do is I had some contacts back in Ohio. I was going to Ohio for my job. So I take half a day off. I go do my job during the day. I take half a day off, and I book an appointment with this distributor. And I walk into this distributor with a glass bottle that's like hand labeled. It says caffeine and alcohol, and it didn't even have a name on it.
Mix number 47.
A number on it, right? And it's like a twist top. And then I have over here a can that's like a mock-up with no top on it. And I tell them, like, this is what it's going to taste like. This is my pitch, right? And this is what it's going to look like.
Because you can't put it together, because that's where the money's spent.
That's where the risk is.
That's where the risk is. Because once they start putting it together, it's like, yeah, we're going to do this for you, but we got to do it 100,000 times.
Right.
We can't do it 4.
Exactly.
There's no 4.
So we call the guy, or I pitch the guy, and he calls me a week later and he says, like, yeah, thanks for coming in, but like, call us when you have a finished product. And it was baffling to me in my mind. What do you mean? I'm not going to have a finished product until you're going to buy it.
Here's a jar.
Right. Yeah. Close enough. Yeah.
Yeah. Got to get the orders first. Yeah. That's always, I tell people all the time when you come in my office and you see all the little stuff in there. So many people love to have their accolades on the wall, right? All their trophies and all their things. I have a collection of failures. I have little things. Like I have my $100,000 bottle of vitamins on my desk. From when we started our vitamin multi-level marketing company. Yeah. And because what I did was I went and said, I'm going to sell all this shit. So let's just fill a warehouse up, because it's cheaper to do it that way.
Right.
So we spent $100,000 and filled a warehouse up, and then nobody bought the fucking vitamins. So I got one bottle left in my office to remind me to make sure somebody wants to buy it before you manufacture anything.
Right. Because our ideas are always genius to us,
dude,
right?
I've done that. Man. And it's hard too. It's so hard, because you get an idea and you're like, this is great.
Yeah.
Like I can spin this up for nothing. Like it's going to be like $5,000, and I'm getting better at this, right? Like I have an idea for a very simple tech platform. Very simple. It's not even hard. It's super simple, but the concept of what it does is kind of unique and will be great. But the guy, we're spinning it up on high level, which is what we spin all our sites up on. And to make it work, he needed this plugin that's like $500 a month. And I was like, no. I'm like, spin it up in WordPress on standalone. I'm going to market it out. If it works and people sign up, then we'll move it to high level and I'll get the plugin. Yeah. I'm like, it was cheap. You're talking about like $6,000 a year, but I'm so gun shy from this bottle of vitamins. I'm looking at it. I'm like, don't do it. You can get the website. You can do the marketing for cheap. That's the tester. See if it works and then go from there.
I love that. That's a really good reminder. My biggest mistake was when I thought it was going to be easy. I lost $1 million by thinking I could create, while I'm running Koya, and which is more than a full-time job, as any business is, right? Yeah. And we have a tiger by the tail, and this thing's growing like crazy. I decide that during the hard seltzer boom, I saw some white space and an opportunity, and I could easily stand it up. And I was being told that, the big people the big companies were buying brands really early. I said, great. I'll commit $1 million to this thing. I did exactly what we said not to do. I bought all the inventory. I got the distributors. I even got some retailers to agree to take it on. And in the time that it took from concept to finished product,
the market collapsed.
Everybody else came out with it. Yeah. So it collapsed in that way. Yeah. It was saturated. Yeah. All of a sudden, everyone's saying, well, like, who's running this thing and how much time are you dedicating? And I was like, oh shit.
You're like, you were just supposed to buy me out on day one. What are we doing here?
To really make anything.
I'm just trying to get like a 4X multiple. Yeah. I'm not even being greedy here. Let's just get me out of this thing.
Exactly.
Oh man. Yeah. But like I always say, if I have a toxic trait, for me, I meet people, I talk to them, we sit in this room, I hear this unbelievably great business stuff, and they walk out of the room, and I don't care how fucking smart they are or how genius they are, I'm immediately thinking, I can do this.
Yeah. Yes.
I could do this. I mean, I'll just get on the Google machine and just start looking for some stuff. And I'm like, oh, I found this. I wonder if this is the mothership. Let me just go a little bit. Oh, this is the mothership. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think I can do. And then my wife's like, what are you doing? No, stop. Go run your real estate company.
No more company.
You stop it. You stop it right now. Because I'll get to a point where I'll just spread myself so thin over all of these different things that I'm doing that like the awesome business that I have here that's making a truckload of money will start to suffer and then dwindle a little bit. So it ends up just becoming way more work for the same amount of money.
Yeah.
I'm like, and then I start chopping legs off and get rid of things. And I'm like, okay, get back to my core focus. And then the money comes back up with less effort.
It's a real problem for entrepreneurs though. I mean, I've done it a couple times as well.
Yeah, you have.
Yeah.
But your first product comes out, so you got your jar of liquid. And I know we all know what the color of energy drinks. I just picture you standing there with this executive looking like you're holding a pee sample. That's all I'm envisioning in this.
Well, we made ours red, so
okay, it was red. Okay, that's good. That's good. That's better. That's better. So he tells you to pound sand because you don't have a real product.
Yeah. So talk about Tenacity again, right? So I said, okay. He was gracious about it. It's like, not right now, but when you have a product. And I walked away from that. And I'm like, what can I do here? So I remembered all my friends that own these bars and nightclubs that I made a lot of money for, and they made me a lot of money as well. Mm-hmm. And I called them all and I said, you guys are some of that distributor's biggest customers. And they're like, yeah. I said, will you please call them and tell them that there's this new product that you want and you need them to carry it?
So slick.
They all called him, and he calls me a week later and he said, well, I guess you know some people here. We'll take the product, but we're going to take one pallet. I would lose money shipping one pallet.
Yeah.
But it didn't matter. We were now in business.
It's a loss leader.
And we got going.
It's always good to have buddies that'll have your back and make those calls when you get them. I got Red Bull in my bar in Atlanta a similar way by just being through nonsense. But when they were rolling that out slowly, and like one bar in a market would get it and they give it to another bar the next month. And they just did this real exclusive rollout. One of the guys that worked for me was this German cat, Peter Pfaffenbigler. And what's up, Peter? You're not listening. Anyway, Peter Pfaffenbickler was his name. And he's like, Germany's like, oh, this Red Bull, every people, Europe, they love it. They mix it with vodka, blah, blah, blah. I was like, bring a can in. Right. So we had a can of it. And that day we were doing something for an article for Cobalt. And they were like, what's your house drink? And I'm like, it's Grey Goose and Red Bull. And they took a picture of the can and they took a picture of the bottle. And it was in like the luxury magazine in Atlanta like the next week. Right. And then my phone's ringing. Hey, this is, Dave Road from Red Bull. Just where are you getting our product? I'm like, what? And he's like, I saw in the magazine that's your house drink. Where are you getting the product from? And I was like, yeah, we don't have it.
Yeah.
He's like, what? I go, yeah, I just want to be first. And he's like, okay, then then you're first.
You got it. That's amazing.
Yeah, I started laughing. So take a chance, lie. No, just don't do that. It's a terrible thing to say. Terrible. So you're up and running. Now you got it going. The first iteration of the product was called?
Four.
Just four.
Yep.
Just four.
Not Four Loko.
Not crazy at this point. Not crazy. It's just a little bit of energy drink, a little bit of this. And how did 4 go?
So we had this false sense of success. So what I came to learn over years of scaling beverages is the real metric is velocity. How much is it selling in that bar or store, right? Pick one. You don't need a bunch. If it's selling over and over again, you have a real business. If it sells in once and it sits on the shelf, you don't. But we would sell to distributors. So that's where we would make our money. Mm-hmm. So we would sell into them. They would sell to stores. And we had this false sense of we were doing well.
Our product is flying off the shelves onto other shelves where it's sitting.
Exactly. Exactly.
Wait, what? We got to go get it. It's expired. No.
To that point, there was a moment where we got into Circle K in Arizona. And Circle K is the biggest C-store in Arizona by far. And it's kind of make or break there. Mm. And it was not moving. And my partner was going around literally buying the product off the shelf so that we could manufacture velocity so that we wouldn't get dropped by them or the distributor. Oh. So needless to say, it was not working.
Not working.
And I'll say we did that for about, let's call it a year and a half, to where it was literally just us 3 working in the company. We had hired 2 other people. We had to let those people go because we couldn't make payroll. What
was the loss on year 1?
I mean, we didn't have much money, so maybe $200,000.
Okay, so you're 200 G's in the hole.
Yeah.
Start having some long looks at each other like, doing this? Like, are we, what are we doing?
And there was a guy who was in the industry who kind of was a one-man show. He didn't have any monster success products, but he had a couple that did okay with broad distribution. And so my partners and I were talking, are we going to do this? Are we not? Are we going to shut this down? These guys both had careers, right? This is what I was doing anyways.
Are you all in at this point? Are you done with the?
Everybody's all in at this point.
Okay. Everybody's all in.
So they had all quit their jobs. I had quit my job. I think I was making, instead of 42,000, I was making 45,000. It wasn't much, right?
Yeah.
It was something. And, but these guys had really good paying jobs. And I said, all right, listen, if this doesn't turn, you guys go back to your industries and your career. I'll keep running this thing. I'll try to get their family had invested. I'll try to get your family's money back. And then I'll keep running with this thing and see what I can do with it. In the meantime, we decided we have to iterate and do something different. And so minor tweaks. We took the same product. We did a different flavor. We took it from 6% alcohol and put it at 10% alcohol. We took it from a white can, put it in a black can.
And what was the change? So this is iteration. What caused that change? Why more alcohol?
Because one, because 4 wasn't working, what we were doing. And then second of all, we were noticing other products with slightly higher alcohol were selling. And so we said, let's try that angle. So, and then also we had this ingredient called wormwood, which is from absinthe, if you've ever heard of it. We had it in our original drink. It sounds horrible.
Terrible.
It sounds horrible, right? We thought I'll take the blame. I thought it would be cool because it was in absinthe and it hadn't been used for 100 years.
Yeah.
It did not work. And so we took
wormwood.
Right.
I ain't drinking that with wormwood in it.
You sound like the distributor.
Do I?
Kicked off with exactly.
All right, there you go.
And so we took that out and we made 4 Max, and it didn't light the world on fire, but it did good enough to keep us in business. And so that was the first kind of like iteration that opened our eyes to like, hey, we might have to try different things.
So we could pivot. You know, so many people make the mistake of falling so in love with their original product that they can't pivot.
Yep.
They can't see that. And I think probably for you guys, from what it sounds like, you were probably in love with the idea of having a beverage company. You didn't give a shit about the product.
Yeah, I was probably holding on to the original product because what I had been told in my training with my first company was you have to nail your base product before you come out with line extensions. Well, the difference is this wasn't a line extension. This was a pivot.
Yeah, hard rebrand.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I think we knew the idea was good. We knew there was interest in it. We just didn't find the right fit. And so that got us going along those lines. And then my other partner, Jeff, was out in Arizona and he saw this product called Juice, and it was 24-ounce can at 9.9% alcohol. Again, remember, we weren't the first to do any of this, right? We were just mimicking what was out there, caffeine and alcohol. And so he said, listen, this stuff is selling. It's selling really well and we need to do it.
You don't need $1 million idea. You just need a $50 Xerox machine.
There you go. There you go. With a cool factor to it, right?
Add a little cool to it.
Just a little tweak.
Cool to it.
And so we came up with the idea of Four Loko. We didn't know what it was going to be called. My other partner, Jason, said, it's kind of crazy. Let's call it Loco. That was as scientific as that was. And then we made a 24-ounce can. We took it to 11% alcohol, which was the highest we could make it in many of the states. Mm-hmm. And the minute we put that product out, we knew we were on
it. It went through the roof.
It went through the roof.
So sales are booming. Life is going great. Everything is wonderful. You're like, man, honey, I told you this was going to work. You give me grief. I told you, here's your rent check back. I don't need that anymore. I told you this was going to pay off. And then there's that knock at the door where you get a letter that's probably the scariest letter you can get.
Right.
What was that letter?
So we knew there was a little controversy around alcoholic energy drinks because a competitor of ours and the original alcoholic energy drink called Sparks had been acquired by Miller. And there were 18 attorney generals that had signed a letter saying they didn't like this and they thought it was unsafe. Well, Miller, big company, lots of brands, said, okay, we don't want this negative press or this pressure, and we'll voluntarily reformulate it. And when they did that, they turned their attention to us. So the attorney general letter was, look, it's 18 attorney generals. It's scary, but it wasn't that big of a deal. It wasn't threatening. It was suggesting. Mm-hmm. When it really got scary was when this media storm hit and we ended up on every news channel across the country, and Chuck Schumer's holding a can up saying this stuff gets you higher than ecstasy. Right. And
see, but okay. All right. Stop for a second. There had to be a moment when you saw that you were like, holy shit, we're going to be rich. I mean, like, for that particular product and that particular model, is there a better spokesman than Chuck Schumer standing there saying this will get you higher than ecstasy?
Exactly. It had the exact reverse effect of what they planned.
God. It's like back in the day with who was it? Tipper Gore with the "Don't listen to this record." All the kids bought it.
Everybody buys it. Right. So that was a little bit scary, and we were spitting. To your point, we were spitting off money at that point. I mean, we were growing like crazy, just shooting off cash. When it really got scary was when we started to have bigger, more organized agencies like the FDA knock on our door.
Dude, when you get a piece of paper that says the United States government versus, it's not there. So, the emotions of those lawsuits getting filed and having to navigate that. Now, obviously, you said that originally you've chosen your partners at this company, as so many people do. Like, this is not a lot of people do. It's a terrible idea, but a lot of people do it. A lot of people want partners in a business. They do because they don't want to walk the lone alone. One log makes a lousy fire, right? You don't want to walk that road by yourself. You want it, and if you do it with your buddies, and we're all high-fiving this and that. But if all of you do the same thing, then most of you are not needed.
Right.
And that causes a lot of friction, a lot of problems. So I'm guessing when these lawsuits started to hit, this is probably when you and your partner started to have a little stress.
So we had stress, but it didn't really stress our relationship. It actually bonded us at that time.
Oh, good.
Because I think looking back, the high highs and the low lows cause you to be bonded, right? You're either celebrating and high-fiving, or you're like, oh shit, we got to get through this. And there's no time for these like tiffs. There were breaks in the relationships from day one in different ways, right? Different communication styles, different mentalities, different like desires to be the top dog. And we didn't have any hierarchical structure. We were just three equal partners. And over time that started to fray. When we ultimately, I'm fast forwarding a little bit, but when we got through that, debacle that cost us $30 million and kept us on the verge of going out of business, all that stuff. And we went to a steady state again. It was toxic. And we had a business coach come in who told us, this is a three-headed monster that is bound for disaster unless you figure out a structure.
Yeah.
And that just stirred the shit up and probably made things more tense than they ever were.
The lessons that you learned from that, and we're going to get to the new business now and how this kind of fell apart, but I wanted to talk about this, was the lessons that you learned from that. Obviously, you guys just kind of fell into this and you did this. You didn't have, like, I'm a huge proponent of EOS. Like, we run all of our businesses on EOS. We have an operating system. Everybody knows what's going on. The meetings work a certain way. Everything happens. There's workflow. There's goals. Everybody knows what is going on from top to bottom in all of our businesses. And I look back to before we had that in our companies, and I was like, whoa, like, we were just fucking winging it, right? We were. Right. I like to say we were failing successfully is what I say. We're very successful, but I think we were leaving a lot on the table everywhere we were. So what is as you go into the formation of your new businesses, are you using anything like that? Are you guys, you run your business like that with
not as formal as EOS. We do have structure, which we didn't then. And keep in mind, we went from a $6 million company to a $160 million company in 2 years. There's not much opportunity to put structure.
Up and to the right, my man.
Yeah, we were just like throwing shit together, right, and holding on for the ride, and it was wild. In terms of structure, we have much more now, and we really try to focus on transparency and communication and avoid any back channeling discussions and all these kind of things that can be toxic in a company. Yeah. But you asked what I've learned and what I took forward. I think some of them were about partnership structures, right? And look, we were very successful as a partner, as a partnership group, and we made some amazing things happen. What I would say is people grow and change. And, we started when we were all 25-ish, and, I'm in my early 30s, married with 2 kids, where my other partners weren't at the same place. Life is just different. And what we didn't do was talk about and structure how you get out just as much as how you get in, right?
I tell people that all the time, man, that want to come together in real estate. There's a lot of people want to work together as teams and a business this. And I'm always like, man, you got to structure the separation agreement first. It's more important than partnership agreement. Yeah. What's the buy-sell agreement look like? Who's going to keep down to the website, the domain names, who's going to keep this, who's going to keep all of it? How are you splitting this up? How does this work? And if you guys can agree to that document, if you can agree to that one, the partnership agreement is easy.
Yeah.
Who's going to do what? The areas of responsibility part is simple.
Yeah.
Right. That's the hard part. And if you can do it up front and everybody's still friends at the end of it, then you're okay. It's essentially a business prenup, and you should absolutely have one. I think that is imperative. And I think if you're going to have partners, having a shared vision for what the exit on the business looks like.
Yeah.
Like, what's our long-term goal? What are we trying to do to get from here to there to get out of this?
Yep.
Right.
Exactly.
Like, because these people try to build, I just don't believe there's anything such thing as a legacy business anymore. There's like, if you think your kids are going to come up and run your business, not, because it's probably not going to be worth anything by the time they're around.
Yeah. It changes so fast now.
It changes so fast. So, you've got to, businesses are built to be sold, to build up as much profitability as you can, and then exit when and if you can, if the opportunity presents itself. So I think those two things are very, very important. And we've had some great exits in some of the businesses that we've done.
Yeah.
And because they were built that way from the ground up. Like, we knew, like, we want to build this and then we want to sell this to these guys.
But when you say that, I think one of the things in beverage that's interesting, especially in non-alc, is like the traditional build to sell model is you never need to really make money. All top line growth, burn as much as you want, fund it, and some strategic will come in to fix all that back end stuff, synergies, whatever, margins, whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. And we started with Koya, which I know we'll get into, but we started Koya in that way. And the market changed around 2020, where that was no longer good enough for a strategic to acquire. You had to prove profitability and you had to still grow. And so the reason I bring that up is because I've changed my mentality now, which is just build a good business foundationally, and someone will come along and want to buy it.
Yeah. Well, I think just because of what Wall Street and how it's performed over the last 20 years, where, like, let's face it, as a tech startup, the worst thing you can do is get profitable.
Right.
Because as soon as you get profitable, well, now there's something to have it run a multiple off of,
right,
which you don't want to do. Right? So I think that in these massive acquisitions you've seen some of these VC companies make and private equity make, and then these companies go just flat and blow up instantly because there's no real business behind it. The WeWorks of the world.
Right.
I think proof of concept to from manufacturer to consumer, or from however it is, but you've got to have some real sales that actually hold the business up.
Yeah.
I think it's important.
Right.
So you're cruising along with Four Loko, you get outside of that. What's obviously there's a day that comes along that you're no longer at Four Loko on a daily basis. What is that day like? So
backing up a little bit, Four Loko gets stabilized. We get through all the government bullshit. We realize we have two assets, or at least the way I looked at it. We have the brand, which is great. We have this distribution network that gets us in every county and every store across the entire country. And so my thought was like, how do we capitalize on that? And so we started doing innovation. I found this small kind of like proof of concept idea. It was called, it was an alcoholic root beer, but this guy had no way to scale it. And so we essentially bought this on a future royalty deal, created the brand, Not Your Father's Root Beer, scaled that over 18 months and sold it to Pabst. And then after that, which was my baby, right? It was where I was spending my time. It was like helping us gloss over partnership issues. That goes away. And I'm like directionless within the company.
Yeah.
Tensions are high. And so long story short, I end up fired from my company by my partners one day and wake up and go, oh shit. Okay. What do I do now? Who am I? What is my purpose?
Yeah. That's something I preach all the time. It's so important is to, if you're going to be, I don't care if you're an entrepreneur or an employee, right? There's so many things that your ego gets detached to what you do. Yep. And you can't let what you do become who you are, because just like that situation, like you were Four Loko Chris, I'm guessing, right?
Yeah.
How many times Chris at Four Loko and Four Loko Chris, like, it's Four Loko Chris. And all of a sudden one day you're not Four Loko Chris.
Exactly. And
it's like, whoa, did that just happen? And for example, like I learned this lesson when, after, an NFL star, you can Google which one, you can figure this out. An NFL star had a murder issue at a nightclub in Atlanta during Super Bowl of 2000. That was the club that I was running. And then of course anybody says, it was the joke. Anybody that says any press is good press, never tried to run Cobalt Lounge. Yeah. That's what our thing was. Cause dude, we went from Esquire magazine called that place the best nightclub on the East Coast to essentially like 10 people in it. You could bowl in there on a Friday night. It was that bad. And it never came back. And I'll never forget the main investor, super nice guy, sent his like money guys, finance guy to meet with me one day. And I was really, really good about training people. Mm-hmm. Let this be a lesson too. I was really good about training people. And I got to a point where everybody in there could do my job because I had trained off every piece of it, right? There was nothing that I did not know how to do that this other person did not know how to do. And he was much, much less than I was.
Right.
So they came to me and they're like, yeah, today's your last day. We're just going to move on, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, whoa, okay. So I'm out.
Yeah.
And then like, I had plenty of money. Things were good. So I'm like, I'm going to take a break for a second, just kind of chill. I'm just getting my wits about me because I was the Cobalt dude. And that was a super hot nightclub. I could go anywhere and it was balling.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget. And this sounds stupid, but it affected me to my core.
Yeah.
So there was a new club opened up called Lava Lounge downtown in Midtown Atlanta. And we went on opening night and I knew the guy that owned it, but he was obviously in the bar. So there's a line around the planet and there's this guy at the door that I don't know. Right. So I go walking up and I'm like, hey man, how are you? He's right here. And he's like, oh, he's inside somewhere. What's up? And I'm like, oh, I'm John from Cobalt. And he's like, the bar closed like 2 months ago. And it crushed me to my core.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I will never be my business. I will never attach my business to who I am again, ever.
Do you think you can tell somebody that, or they have to experience something like that?
I think they kind of got to experience it, man. Because I think you're going to have that. And the thing is too, is like, think about how can you make a good decision about exiting a business if it's tied to your ego?
Yeah, true.
If it's tied to your whole perception that you put out to the world, how can you make a good decision about that?
Yeah, that's a good point.
And you probably have a lot of people ride businesses down further than they should when they could have sold them and gotten out of them because it's just who they are.
Yeah.
Well, this is what I do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, obviously they pull the rug on you a little bit at Four Loko and that sends you rudderless a little bit.
Yeah. But similar to you is like, let me take a break. Let me think about it. Once you come out of the first emotion was actually released.
You still retained your ownership.
Yeah. I still own a third of the company.
Yeah. Your day to day was gone.
That's right.
So it's not catastrophic.
It's not catastrophic, but I come from, a lower middle class, blue collar family where you work to eat and that's who you are.
Yeah.
And so that's a transition, right? That's not the reality anymore, but it felt like that. Like, what the hell am I doing? So once I get past all that, I'm like, let me just take some time, and the blinders came off, right? Like when you're deep in a business, at least when I am, I don't even know there's the rest of the world sometimes, right? And so the blinders came off and I was like, oh shit, there's all kinds of opportunities. There's more opportunities than I can ever take advantage of. What do I want to do? The easy thing would have been to go create another alcohol company, right? I have all the contacts in the industry, track record, all that good stuff. But I didn't want to compete with myself, and it just wasn't really aligned with who I was at the time or what I was doing. So
hard to be the party guy out at the club when you got 2 young kids and a wife that expect you home.
That's right. And luckily I made that transition, right?
Yeah.
Not seamlessly, but I made it. So my second son's born. We find out he's lactose intolerant. My wife is a nutritionalist. We become a dairy-free household. This is back in 2014 before, plant-based and all these milk alternatives were what they were. And so right at that same time, I had a buddy call me and he said, hey, we're looking at this product called Raw Nature 5. We're thinking of investing. You're a beverage guy. Will you take a look? So I come out of my gym and they actually have it there. It's one of the 20 places it's distributed. I taste it, really good. Not a big health guy at that moment. I mean, in my way, but not like the way I am now. And I'm like, yeah, this is good. I'll invest in it. So I invest some money. Don't think much more of it.
But you're not thinking, you know what this needs?
Yeah.
Wormwood.
Right. That's luckily I wasn't thinking that.
Okay, keep going. That's fine.
So the entrepreneurs, the original founders were in Chicago. I'm the local entrepreneur. They're calling me for different advice. There's some turmoil with an advisor in the company. It's on the verge of going out of business. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking for something to do. And this is really aligned with who I am in my life. So basically go to them and I'm like, look, I'll come in and fund this company. I'm going to come in and help pivot it. I'll co-found this new company with you, but I'm 100% in charge. And that was called Raw Nature 5. And that turned into Koya, which is essentially a plant-based protein drink. We use a blend of plant proteins in almond milk at low sugar, and it tastes really good.
So what did you see in the original brand that you knew, man, I can jazz this up a little bit?
Yeah, I can make it look pretty, right? Make it cool.
Yeah.
Well, look, I saw the negatives. I saw it was a bad name. It was an ugly bottle or label. I knew the nutritionals weren't what they said they were on the bottle. I just suspected that. And that wasn't intentional. It was just made in a commercial kitchen. They were doing everything themselves. I knew that I knew how to make this commercial and scalable quickly. And then I went in and doing some due diligence. They were in one Whole Foods in Lincoln Park in Chicago. I went into that store and I just watched. I did like secret shopping. And this woman goes up to the shelf and grabs it and she explains it to the guy she's with. And she's raving about it and explaining it to him. And to me, I'm like, if there's something interesting enough that someone's willing to explain, it's that digestible, there's something here. And we weren't in New York or LA where these trends start. So it's like, if in Chicago, this makes sense.
Deep dish Chicago, buddy.
Right, exactly.
Like if this is going to work here.
Portillo's, you're getting hot dogs and deep dish. And so I said, if it's working here, there's a real opportunity here. And it makes sense for me and my lifestyle. And so there's a little bit of like gut feel to it. And then those things kind of subconsciously added up.
So you get that going. You bought the company outright from the guy, or you just became a major investor?
I took over the majority investor position, took over an equity stake. I said, I'll take a 1-year interim CEO role. I'm going to hire a backfill, and then I ended up raising more money than I ever planned to. And once I took money from investors, it was my job to run.
They got to go.
So,
and I'm guessing sales up and to the right. Yes.
Yeah. So we did 300,000 the first year. We did 3.2 million the second year, and it's been steady ever since.
And how did you? So the original distribution was really just through Whole Foods. That was it.
So the original distribution in Raw Nature 5 was just them. They were self-distributing. When I pulled it off the market, when we reformulated, created the new brand Koya, our original distribution was Whole Foods, and we did that exclusively for 4 months, which was a great launch, right? Mm-hmm. When you go into anybody else and say we launch nationally with Whole Foods exclusively, you get a meeting. So we quickly went from those 400, let's call it in 25 stores, to now we're in 30,000 stores across the country, from Starbucks to Whole Foods to Walmart to 7-Eleven to Ralph's or Kroger.
But I know that Starbucks was really the account that, because again, this is like a sample thing. It's like when you go to a nightclub and they're like, hey, have you tried our new tequila? Here's a shot of it. This is essentially what you use Starbucks for, right?
Yeah. So Starbucks is relatively new. We just launched with them at the end of last year. But to your point, yes, beverage in general is a liquid to lips business. People have to taste the product. And so even from day one in Whole Foods, we focused on getting them in that store to taste the product. That's how we would win. So it's always been an ideal situation to have a partner like Starbucks that has heavy foot traffic. Like I read a stat, Starbucks has 100 million people walk through their doors weekly. Now that's global. So cut it in half and say it's 50 million, but that's massive awareness and impressions, right? So I always knew that would be an ideal partner. And so much so that we revised the formulation of the product in the early days. It had hemp protein in it, which, although it's federally legal, we knew would not be okay by Starbucks standards. So we changed it. We have brown rice, chickpea, and pea protein in it now to get a complete amino acid profile. But so we made that change specifically for Starbucks. Starbucks was bringing in new brands 6, 7, 8 years ago. Fast forward, the woman who was doing that initiative leaves. They're not bringing in anything really new for a while. COVID hits. And so it was a passion project of mine to get in there, but it took 8 years to do it.
8. So, and you were reformulating with the idea of they were going to have this for
7 years ago.
7 years ago.
Yes.
So again, but this is beginning with the end in mind. You
That's
knew
right.
you knew who your eventual powerhouse player was going to be. So like, let's not wait to pivot to do what we need to do to get in there. Let's do it now.
Right. And it wasn't a key element of the product that would change the perception of it.
Yeah.
So,
How'd you get into Starbucks?
So we have a lot of different celebrity investors and athletes, and we've worked with them in plenty of different ways, sometimes just to build awareness from social media or from different partnerships. But one of the most valuable ways has been talking to them about their network and being clear on what we were trying to accomplish. And so with one of those, I won't say his name, but with one of those, we mentioned that we wanted to be in Starbucks.
Barry Sanders.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I don't know. It wasn't Barry Sanders.
I love that you threw out Barry Sanders.
I don't know. He was on the draft last week. I saw him. I don't know.
Which is amazing that draft was so successful in Detroit.
Yes, no kidding.
But so he basically worked his network and said, I'll get you an introduction to the top. And so we met we talked to the CEO and his right-hand man, who helped us navigate down through the organization to the appropriate person that was making these decisions. That's how we got to the right person. There was also a bit of luck. They just happened to be revamping their coolers. And so it was a perfect timing of talking to the right person and then them being focused on this.
Dude, you know what? It reminds me of one of my superpowers. I'm the best complainer in the world, right? I never, like if something's going wrong, like I don't call the 800 help number. This is for suckers. Right? I Google who's the CEO of the company. Then I figure out what the email chain is of that company, of said company. I'll just figure out what their email pattern is.
Right.
And then I'll find out who the CEO is. And then I'll write my little letter of complaint or whatever I need help with. And then I will basically be like, say it's Bob Smith. So I'll be like, bob.smith@company.com, bobsmith@company.com, b.smith@company.com. And I'll just fill in 20 email addresses in the send, right?
Yeah.
And then I just hit send. And then I just watch the kicks.
Right.
Kick 1, kick 2, kick 2. And sure enough,
Find the one.
19, number 20 got through. And every single time, man, I'll get a phone call in 2 seconds. And the world has actually made this easier because you can also go to Twitter and @ people.
Yeah.
You can go to Instagram @ people. You can go to LinkedIn and message them directly on LinkedIn. I mean, the world's pretty easy to get right to the top.
Yeah.
And the funniest thing about that is the people at the top of most of these big companies never get stuff like this.
Right.
And they're just like, not realizing the shit happens every single day, but 87 levels below them, and it never gets to them. They're like, oh, this happened at our company. And they get right on it.
So I have that exact story. Which
Do you?
Is so, yeah.
I love that.
I think that CEOs and leaders of company need to figure out ways to stay in touch with the end consumer. And it gets harder and harder the bigger you get, right? And so one silly example, but I think is relevant, is every time someone posts something on our product, I ask our team to repost it on social media. And I watch our account and I go to every person we repost and I like their post that was for us.
That's awesome.
I can't tell you how many people have reached out and been like, oh my God, you're the CEO of the company or co-founder of the company. Like,
that's amazing.
They're reaching out. On a separate side, our product is very sensitive. It's a perishable, which means it needs to be refrigerated at all times. Low acid beverage. It's like milk. So it can be sensitive. Milk spoils sometimes, right? So occasionally there's some temperature abuse, I'll call it. Like they might offload it from the truck and it might set out a little too long before it goes into the cooler, right? And you can get an off taste or it can be whatever. So we've had customer complaints before.
Sure.
I try to reach out to those people directly. And at one point I would do it with a video, personalized video.
Yeah.
If not, I'll send them a direct email. Never saying it was anyone else's fault. It's always our fault.
Yeah.
We expect a perfect experience. You didn't have one. I apologize. And I'll tell you, the people that, people sometimes are pissed about stuff. The people that are the most pissed, if they just get that message from me, they're like, oh no, we love your product. It's okay. Yeah. Yeah.
You don't know how many times I've spent 45 minutes to an hour and 15 minutes on the phone with somebody over a 1-star like Yelp review.
Yeah.
For one of our people. You got to remember, I mean, like real estate brokerage is hard, right? We got 580 agents that work here, right? That's a lot.
Yeah,
That's a lot of transactions and they're all independent contractors.
Yeah.
But if one of them gets a bad review, it affects all of them.
That's right.
So it's my job to defend this stuff and try to get it on. And normally if I just spend an hour with somebody on the phone, like going through every little thing and what can we do, blah, 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 I can normally get them to like back it off.
Yeah.
Right. Pretty quick. But what I've started doing that I find is much more effective, not just for our clients and customers of Simply Vegas, but also our agencies here. I love to just randomly call clients that are closing with deals and just thank them for using our agents.
Huge.
And I'm like, dude, the owner of the company just called me and said, thanks for, I love that.
Yeah. Appreciation goes a long way.
Yeah, dude, it's such a little thing. And I find that, thanking people for their business will go way further than just waiting till you get a bad Yelp review.
Yeah, absolutely. And for their partnerships, right? For partner agencies or people as well. Like it does go a long way. And it's hard, at least for me, maybe for many entrepreneurs, but like to slow down enough to do that. But it is really important.
Yeah. But it's the best part of your day.
Yeah.
It's like the best part of your day to do that.
Yeah.
I love that. So what's next for Koya, man?
So, our number one request for Koya is how do I buy it in bulk? We sell over 2 million bottles a month, but it's one bottle at a time, which is great. We have a lot of trial and a lot of awareness, but we get asked constantly, how do we buy it in bulk? And then the second most common question is, how do I get it delivered? Because we're primarily a retailer business right now. So we took that feedback and we created a shelf-stable, like Tetra Pak version of Koya that'll be available on Amazon soon. And so we'll sell 12 packs that you can get delivered right to your door.
Flavor profile is exactly
the same. 20 grams of protein, vitamins and minerals put into the product. So it's really good. We're really excited about that. That and expansion into other categories that are authentic to the consumer's request for Koya. So I'll give you an example. I have 3 kids at home. Clearly they drink Koya. They're young. So I find half bottles of Koya all over the house all the time.
So make a smaller size.
So we're making a kid version that'll come out later this year as well. So 8 ounces, vitamins and minerals. We sneak some greens in there and some fruits and veggies. So really excited about those 2 things. And there's some others that I won't share yet, but this will be a big year for expansion.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Koya for kids. Koya for kids.
Yeah.
I like it. Well, dude, man, look, it was a pleasure to have you again, twice. And I do have one question, because I know you came into Vegas. This is the 4th podcast today. So 2 of them were with me, but you did 4 today. Yeah. And all I want to know is this, because the other 2 guys you were on are friends of mine. Was this at least the second best podcast you've done today?
Yeah, easily.
See, easily.
I'll tell you, I'll tell you where you easily win is the best intro.
Dude. You know what, man? It's all about the intro.
Yeah.
Because if you don't nail them at the intro, it doesn't matter. Yeah. It doesn't matter. Well, guys, how can they find you, man? How can they find you?
Well, you can find my whole story in my new book called Blackout Punch.
Blackout Punch. Read the book, buy the book. Available Amazon everywhere
Barnes
books are available.
Yep. You can find me on social media, LinkedIn mostly. So Christopher Hunter. You can find me on Instagram, _ Christopher Hunter. That's where I'm active.
Well, dude, I appreciate it so much, man. Thanks for coming back. I'm not going to say that we didn't give away the entire formula for Four Loko on the first one. Maybe we did. It's the lost episode. You'll never know anyway. So there you go. But guys, if you, first of all, thanks so much for joining us today. Please give us a subscribe. Give us a 5-star review, 4-star review, whatever it is. However many stars is the max wherever you are. And dude, if you're just drifting along with the currents of life, you gotta start swimming against the current, man. Nobody's coming to save you. You might as well save yourself. We'll see you next time. What's up, everybody? Thanks for joining us for another episode of Escaping the Drift. Hope you got a bunch out of it, or at least as much as I did out of it. Anyway, if you want to learn more about the show, you can always go over to escapingthedrift.com. You can join our mailing list. But do me a favor, if you wouldn't mind, throw up that 5-star review, give us a share, do something, man. We're here for you. Hopefully you'll be here for us. But anyway, in the meantime, we will see you at the next episode.